Tonight, one of the women accusing Herman Cain of sexual harassment says it happened more than once.
She made a complaint in good faith about a series of inappropriate behaviors and unwanted advances from the CEO.
Jan Crawford has the breaking news. Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords reveals what she remembers of the shooting and her reaction to learning that others had died. Lee Cowan has her story. New unemployment numbers are out today. Anthony Mason tells us what they say about where the economy is headed now. And On the Road with Steve Hartman. Tonight, proof that an elephant never forgets.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening. With Herman Cain essentially tied for the lead in the Republican presidential contest, we've been following late-breaking developments on those accusations of sexual harassment. Today, one of the women who've accused him said through her attorney that there were several incidents in 1999. That's when Cain was head of the National Restaurant Association. For his part, Cain has said repeatedly that he has never harassed anyone. The woman who released the statement today remains anonymous. Political correspondent Jan Crawford starts our coverage with the attorney's news conference. Jan?
Well, Scott, these allegations have rocked this presidential campaign, and all week, Herman Cain has denied any wrongdoing. Today, that lawyer directly contradicted him, although the woman does remain anonymous.
She made a complaint in good faith about a series of inappropriate behaviors and unwanted advances from the CEO.
Attorney Joel Bennett says his client was telling the truth when she accused Herman Cain of sexual harassment when she worked for him 12 years ago.
Mr. Cain knows the specific incidents that were alleged. My client filed a written complaint in 1999 against him specifically, and it had very specific incidents in it. And if he chooses to not remember or not acknowledge those, that's his issue.
But Bennett said the woman, who he said is a government employee married for 26 years, would not reveal details of what happened to protect her privacy.
When you say inappropriate behaviors, does that include any physical contact with your client?
We're not going to get more specific about what was physical, what was verbal. It qualified as sexual harassment in our opinion.
Bennett would not specify how many times the alleged incidents happened, but said they occurred over at least a month's time.
More than one. We're not going to get more specific than that. We resolved the case at an early level. It never got to that point where I could evaluate it as a case for litigation.
Another woman also has accused Cain of harassment when he led the National Restaurant Association in the 1990s. Cain has denied he ever harassed anyone and said the revelations were a calculated smear campaign. Cain said he recalled one complaint that led to a separation agreement.
It was concluded after a thorough investigation that it had no basis.
In a statement, the Restaurant Association said the woman filed the complaint in July 1999, a month after Cain left the organization. It said Cain disputed the allegations in the complaint and that it reached an agreement with the woman 2 months later, in September, without any admission of liability. Bennett said he would not discuss details of that agreement or how much money his client got.
This was a settlement of an internal complaint of sexual harassment. It was not a severance agreement.
Now, Cain's advisor said he is done talking about those allegations after answering questions all week. Scott, their response today: we look forward to focusing our attention on the real issues impacting this country, like fixing this broken economy.
Jan, the primaries start in just 2 months. How is this playing in the early states?
Well, so far, Scott, our reporting shows voters are not buying these allegations, and they're still backing Herman Cain. They think the details are sketchy. These women are not named, and it's a campaign by the media and the left to bring Herman Cain down. And today, what we saw, still no details, still anonymous. It may not change minds very much at this point.
Jan, thank you very much. Cain remained campaigning today, and this was the reception that he got at a meeting of the conservative Americans for Prosperity Foundation. Cain is running about even with Mitt Romney for the nomination. Cain's staff said today that his campaign has raised $1.6 million in just this last week, which the campaign says is 4 times more than they normally raise in a month. We've also been following the remarkable recovery of Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords following that assassination attempt in January. Tonight, we are learning more about her struggle. The Associated Press has obtained a book written by her husband, former astronaut Mark Kelly. It's being published by Scribner, which is owned by CBS. Lee Cowan has a look at the pages, both painful and inspiring.
It's a small chapter at the end of Gabby, A Story of Courage and Hope. It's just a single page of short sentences where Gabrielle Giffords makes one defiant promise. "I will get stronger," she writes. "I will return." Associated Press reporter Amanda Lee Myers obtained a copy of the book before its scheduled release.
It's the first time we're hearing about all the behind-the-scenes struggles.
All the book, except for that last page, was written by Giffords' husband, retired astronaut Mark Kelly, who the AP says details an agonizing wait. Although Giffords was shot in January, he says she couldn't comprehend what had happened until March, months later. When he asked her what she remembered, Kelly says Giffords' reply came in just 3 words: shot, shocked, scary. But what Kelly tried to keep from her that day was just how many people had been hurt. Giffords, he writes, knew that he was holding something back and insisted on knowing. When he told her 13 people had been wounded and 6 people had been killed, he says he held Giffords as she sobbed. Her former communications director, C.J. Karamarjan, says that delay was excruciating.
Gabby's response to what happened was essentially the way we responded. It was just a little bit later.
There were other emotions Giffords had to deal with, too. The first was panic, realizing that she couldn't speak. Kelly also reveals Giffords had lost 50% of her vision, part of the reason for those glasses, when she surprised everyone by appearing on the House floor back in August. But Scott, perhaps the most revealing revelation that came out of that book was about the Giffords as a family and as a couple. Mark Kelly says that they were undergoing fertility treatments and that Giffords had hoped to be pregnant in February of this year. In fact, according to the book, she was scheduled for a doctor's appointment just 2 days after that shooting.
Lee, thank you very much. The latest job numbers came out today, and while they're not great, they are at least a little bit better. Here they are. The unemployment rate in October was 9.0, a drop of 1/10 of a point, but most of that decline is because people out of work just stopped looking. The economy had a net gain of 80,000 jobs. But as Anthony Mason reports, with nearly 14 million people out of work, that is not nearly enough.
In Gilsum, New Hampshire, at the Badger Company, the bomb business is booming.
Business is strangely and actually excellent for us.
Bill White's company makes hand and lip balms and sunscreens sold in 25 countries. With Badger's sales up 7% this year, White is gearing up for the holiday season, but he isn't increasing his holiday hiring.
We're hiring about the same number of people this year as we have in the past.
White needs just 6 people, but says he gets 10 applications a week. Jennifer Campbell was filling one out.
I was employed before, but my mom's restaurant actually just shut down.
White can hold back on hiring because he's just opened a new, more efficient plant.
We're able to do quite a bit more work in the same space with the same number of people.
Private businesses like Badger added just 104,000 jobs in October, while governments cut 24,000. But to get back to pre-recession unemployment levels of 6%, the economy would need to add 250,000 jobs a month for more than 2 years.
There's no real engine for job growth until demand picks up significantly enough to really get employers to start to add to payrolls.
And with growth this slow, economist Michael Darda says it won't take much to knock the economy off its feet.
So you see a substantial risk of another recession?
I'd say 50-50 at this point. That's very high, too high.
The job situation looks even more dire when you add in those who can only find part-time work and those who've given up looking for a job. The so-called underemployment rate is 16.2%.
Anthony, thanks. There were some developments today in the collapse of that Wall Street trading firm, MF Global. The head of that company, John Corzine, who is a former U.S. Senator, former head of Goldman Sachs, former governor of New Jersey, he resigned today. What are the developments there?
Well, he in resigning, Scott, he gave up a $12 million severance package and in a statement said he felt great sadness, but he did not apologize for the collapse of the company, and investigators are still looking for $600 million in missing customer money.
Anthony, thanks very much. President Obama was at the G20 summit in France when today's jobless report came out. Meeting with reporters, he said that it shows America's economy is growing, but in his words, quote, "We have got more to do." Greece's debt crisis dominated those discussions at the G20, especially after Prime Minister George Papandreou sent the stock markets into free fall this week when he called for a referendum on a bailout deal. He has since backed off, and tonight he barely survived a confidence vote in Parliament. Alan Pizzi is in Athens.
Papandreou told Parliament tonight that the bailout plan was a national priority, but the leader of the opposition said his party could not accept the austerity conditions that come with it, which means that the bailout is still very much hanging in the balance. Earlier tonight, thousands of demonstrators who gathered outside Parliament cared less about whether Papandreou won or lost than about what comes next. Europe's $180 billion bailout plan for Greece remains hostage to the wrangling of Greek politicians. And no matter who's in charge, the deal must still be passed by the Greek parliament. Unless the bailout package is put in place, Greece could go broke by the end of the year, pulling down faltering European economies, including Portugal, Spain, and Italy with it. And with 20% of America's exports going to Europe, the U.S. is in the firing line too. Tonight's vote is also seen as a test on the continuing use of the euro currency in Greece. The political uncertainty has given world markets a major case of the jitters. Greeks are already suffering from a wave of job cuts and tax hikes imposed by European banks in return for writing off 50% of Greek debt. Secretary Katie Konstantinos has a simple solution. You want all those people in Parliament to leave, just go away? Where should they go?
To help.
And that pretty much sums up where many financial analysts fear the world economy may be heading if the debt crisis racking Europe isn't brought under control. Scott?
Alan, thanks very much. The struggle for control of the Occupy movement. Researchers journey to Mars without ever leaving the lab. And take a ride on the love train when the CBS Evening News continues. The White House today rejected a congressional subpoena for all of the files related to Solyndra, that bankrupt solar panel manufacturer. A White House lawyer said today they've already turned over 85,000 pages of documents and said the subpoena was driven by partisan politics. Solyndra went belly up after getting more than $500 million in government loan guarantees. Peaceful protests by the Occupy Oakland movement were overshadowed this week by violent clashes between a small group of demonstrators and the police. Now there is concern among the majority of the protesters that their message is being hijacked. We asked John Blackstone to look into this.
It could be seen as a battle for the image of the Occupy movement. One demonstrator struggles to put out the flames of a burning barricade as others, masked and dressed in black, pull him away. It wasn't the only time during a huge Occupy demonstration in Oakland this week that protesters found themselves on opposite sides. When dozens of black-clad marchers began attacking a supermarket, others urged them to stop, finally linking arms to protect the store from further destruction. One demonstrator, Sheikh Anderson, distanced most of the protesters from the violence.
We called the mayor's office the moment we understood what was going on over there. That was an anonymous action. That was nothing to do with Occupy Oakland.
Our streets! Our streets! For many demonstrators, a sinister mask fashioned on Guy Fawkes, the revolutionary who attempted to blow up the British Parliament buildings more than 400 years ago, has become a worldwide symbol of anarchy and revolution. For years, black-clad demonstrators known as the Black Bloc have been showing up at marches in Europe and the U.S. Although often small in numbers, by destroying property and challenging police, they can hijack the message of otherwise peaceful protests.
I see Black Bloc as a tactic, not really as a movement.
Ryan Andriola, an Occupy demonstrator, says he believes in nonviolence, but is not ready to condemn the tactics of the Black Bloc.
As individuals, we respect people's freedom to act the way that they feel they have to act to make the changes they wish to see.
Those intent on violence may be on the fringes, but once trouble begins, they often get the spotlight. In Oakland, city officials have warned that more violence could bring another order to close down the Occupy encampment. John Blackstone, CBS News, San Francisco.
The latest attempt by the airlines to raise fares didn't get very far. U.S. Airways led it off on Wednesday and Delta followed, but then abandoned the fare hike today, and now U.S. Airways is doing the same. Demand just isn't there, as Americans apparently are cutting back on vacations to save money. A musical proposal on a London train. A remarkable story is next. This has to be the longest ever trip to nowhere. In Moscow, 6 researchers were locked in a mock spaceship to simulate a mission to Mars. After 520 days, the hatch was opened today. The crew emerged pale but healthy. During the experiment, they experienced what a real crew would face on a journey to Mars, from living conditions to the food, everything but weightlessness. There was some video that came into the newsroom today, and it made us laugh, and it's Friday, so we thought we'd share it with you. We bet your trip home from work wasn't anything like this. The ride on a commuter train in London the other evening started out ordinary enough, but then something happened. One by one, the passengers joined in song. Turns out they were all part of a choir, including 34-year-old Adam King, who orchestrated it all to propose to his 25-year-old girlfriend, Lucy.
Rogers. Would you marry me?
The couple has not yet set a date for the wedding, but we trust that, too, will be a lovely day. How can you say no? She lost her best friend, but may have found many more. On the Road with Steve Hartman is next. A while back, Steve Hartman introduced us to a couple of very unlikely friends. They couldn't have been more different, but from the moment they met, they were inseparable. Sorry to report tonight that their story has taken a sad turn. So we asked Steve to bring us up to date in tonight's On the Road.
The Elephant Sanctuary south of Nashville is more than 2,000 acres of Ella freedom. But for this resident named Tara, there's not enough room in Tennessee to escape the bad news she got last week.
Certainly her whole demeanor changed.
Rob Atkinson is the sanctuary CEO.
She became more reserved, quieter, she was depressed.
A far cry from the Tara we'd met before. For nearly a decade, Tara had been best friends with a dog named Bella, a mutt who wandered onto the sanctuary grounds and into the heart of this gentle giant. Tara clearly loved her little dog, and Bella obviously bonded right back.
Wow.
They were so close, in fact, that when Bella got injured a few years ago and had to spend 3 weeks recuperating in the sanctuary office, guess who held vigil the entire time? 2,200 acres to roam free, and Tara just stood in the corner, waiting. The home video of their reunion shows how inseparable they'd become, and remained, right to the end.
Last week, sanctuary workers found Bella's body. By all indications, she'd been attacked by coyotes. Whether Tara witnessed it, tried to intervene, was too late, no one knows. All they do know is that where they found Bella,
Right there.
is not where she got attacked.
There.
Director of Elephant Husbandry, Steve Smith.
When I looked around and saw there was no signs of an attack here, no blood, no tufts of hair, nothing. And Tara, on the underside of her trunk, had blood. Like she picked up the body.
Tara moved her?
Tara moved her. Pretty amazing.
Why here? Steve's theory is Tara carried Bella possibly a mile or more to bring her home. Whether it really happened that way or not, no one doubts Tara was that devoted.
There's nothing we can do to take away her pain. The only ones who can help now are the elephants, and that is already happening.
He says the elephants are spending more time with Tara and making gestures like giving her a portion of their food. Of course, anyone who's lost a dog knows you can't eat your way out of the grief, as much as we might try. But still, nice to know at least Tara's not alone in this, and that compassion is more than just human. Steve Hartman, on the road in Hohenwald, Tennessee.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, I'm Scott Pelley. I'll see you Sunday on 60 Minutes. Good night.